Yeah, hi. Thank you. So I'm Dominique, CSO of Plateau-D, based in Paris. We're working with platelets, and as you may know, platelets are cells that stop from bleeding. So patients with leukemia or cancer, or as well as severe trauma, would need platelets to save their lives, and the source of platelets, the only source of platelets nowadays, is blood donation. But there are several issues with blood donation, and shortage is really important, as well as efficacy and safety. So in Plateau-D, we are making platelets on demand from stem cells. And now we have a device to make platelet production effective at a reasonable cost. So I should move?
Yes. What do you think, Kay? Should she be on the other side? Okay. Yeah, that would be better.
I should be here?
Yes, so then we can get you.
Sorry. Oh, yeah, that's
I think that's way better.
I'm
Kind of in the
facing
middle.
you, but you still make it.
Anywhere in the middle is fine.
The platelet transfusion market, it's a huge market. It's a global market over 3 billion euro, with a majority of it, 1.3 in the US, 1 in Europe and other sites. Yearly, it's 8 million platelet concentrates that are given to patients, half of it to cancer and leukemia patients. There are steadily increasing needs which are not supported by increasing supplies. So why is that? There are drawbacks. There's a short shelf life of the platelet because it cannot be stored at 4 degrees, but it's stored at 22 degrees. So this results in contamination issues, mismatched transfusion, which means that there are efficacy issues. Plus, it's not a standardized product. There are multiple ways to prepare and store blood donor platelets in different countries. So it's time to move to platelets from stem cells. And we did several years ago a receptivity study with a good receptivity study by KOL, because we have all these advantages that are listed there. And also the field is evolving really quick, and there are other groups making platelets from stem cells. It's accepted as a very good gateway for cell therapy because platelets do not have a nucleus. And even in Japan, where it's the country of iPS cells, an autologous clinical study for platelets has been authorized. So, in fact, the cost, now what is the issue? The issue is to make it at industrial scale. And in Plateau-D, we have a process that will allow to develop a cost-effective process for platelet production. How does it work? In fact, the process is in 2 parts. The first one is the culture. The culture takes 2 weeks. The second part is faster. But for the other, for not Plateau-D users, the second step is not so efficient, and this is really blocking the industrialization. So in Plateau-D, we have this second step, which is fast. It takes 2 to 4 hours, whereas other people have it for several days. And because we have our proprietary flow device, we can accelerate, and this is the opening the door to make it at large scale. How does it work? We have 3 patents. The first patent was the process itself. We have a biochemical interaction which is supporting the system. Then we did our first generation device. You see the video of it. The red dots is when you release platelets. Don't have time to go over the details. This was microfluidic based platform. And the third patent was increasing the yield with pharmacological agents. Major achievements since were we could transfer our technology in a fee-for-service format to independent blood bank research center, which is quite important. It shows that our technology is robust, can be transferred to a different group, plus it's a blood bank. So they believe in our technology for the transfusion of the future, which is quite important. And then we have done a second generation device, and with that we have accumulated preclinical data, vitro study, platelet structure and function. This looks like a platelet from the blood. You couldn't see the difference, but it's from the stem cells. And we did a vivo study bioavailability in mice. Yeah. So we have been funded so far. We had a private collaboration funding of 1.2 million with a big pharma in France, but for internal reasons they had to stop the collaboration, and so we've been supported by research consortia by the French government. Competition, that's where we are really, that's a very important slide. All the data that are there are already published, that's why you have the list. I don't know if I can focus with that. Oh yeah, sorry, yes, but I've done that before. But so Megacarion is a spin-off of Tokyo Kyoto University. That's where the iPS cells were discovered. And they have the best cells. These are immortalized iPS cell lines. But their flow system is based on a turbulent flow bioreactor, which is not optimized because they need a long time, large cell volume, and they cannot use a high cell concentration. The second competitor is a spin-off of Harvard University. They use iPS cells but not immortalized, which means not optimized. And not everything is available in the publication, but we know they have intermediate time. We know that they do not concentrate very much their cells. Then there's a consortium supported by Fast Track to Innovation H2020 funding. So we don't know exactly if they are aiming at making a company. And on top of that, we have a robust system with different source of cells, high flow, high cell concentration, low volume, short time. So we think that this is really the key to clinical scale. And this is how we intend to do it. So we have done a design to cost approach. How can we develop this approach? So this is the amount of cells of platelets you need to make for a platelet concentrate for a patient. The first generation was the one with the video. You would need this large number. Such not so high, but still this is not acceptable for a large-scale production. So what we are aiming at, and we have a patent underway, so I do not disclose so much. Our third generation, one platelet concentrate we call, is the first step. We can show that this scalability by processing large volume and the reasonable cost, and then we will upgrade that with our large scale for industrial scale. So our development plan is like in 18 months we will have validated the first 3G1PC, we call it, and then 1 year later the large scale. At the same time, we will make business relations with partners to see whether they are interested in deals, and we hope to have made the deals at the end of the first semester 2021. The amount of money we are looking to raise is 1.3 million for the first step and 3 million for the second step, which makes it to 4.3 million. And the exit, this model we are working on, but we think there are three options. The first option is to license out the device to operators, because for the clinical development they will need our device for cost effectiveness. The second possibility is to do a joint venture for co-development with a cell partner and with a Japanese Megacarion, who's a competitor, could also be a kind of partner in this case. Because we have already several contacts, several visits, and so on. Or we could pursue the clinical development of platelets, and this platelet will be a medicinal product. So the team has 4 people in the executive team, a president, the COO, myself, and the pharma advisor. We have 4 full-time researchers. We're backed by a network of experts. We have a consultant, and finally, this is our contact.
Thank you very much. Okay, questions, comments from the panel?
Dominique, thank you so much. One question. Your technology enable a new application of platelets, or would you compete for the existing market?
So there is presently platelets, it's not a market because it's government-based platelet transfusion. So, in fact, now we are focusing on the device, but the application, of course, they are manifold, because with a device you make platelets for any application. So what I develop, this is what I really believe, that's why I founded, I'm an MD, and I think therapeutic product is really the top, the best. Then you can make platelets for diagnosis, you can make platelets for PRP, which is used as a kind of adjuvant therapy for healing. It's some principle of the growth factor that are present in platelets. What else? They can carry drugs, they can carry vectors, whatever. So with the device, we have an effective way to make at a reasonable cost a large amount of platelets. And the byproduct that are not used for the therapeutic product can be used for all the applications. Did I answer your question?
So it would be an enabling technology for a bigger market.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you think any challenges regarding regulatory matters for this kind of is a product?
So, as I said, in a way it's a very favorable situation because platelets do not have a nucleus, so they are very favorable gateway for regenerative medicine. As you know, for regenerative medicine, there are fast-track procedures, and in particular in Japan, so they are the most advanced country, but now it's spreading everywhere for regulatory. It's really important that in the beginning we asked for advice to the European regulatory instances, and we are not a blood product, which is really important because every application of blood product has its own regulation. As I said, it's not a standard product, whereas we will develop a drug if we go to the market as drugs, as a
So you will be an ATMP or a medical device, ATMP.
Yes, but the regulatory, they said it's not an ATMP because platelets do not have a nucleus. And we said, oh, but it doesn't say that an ATMP needs a nucleus. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's a cell, it's a culture-derived cell product, ATMP-like flavor, what you like. But in Japan, they're already fast. They have, in the Kyoto University, using the technology of Megakaryon, they start to do. So they have this patient, refractory, really her life is challenged and so on. So they're making iPS cells from herself to make her own platelets through the whole process.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
Dominique, I have a quick question. You had the comparison about your competition and yourself with lots of different criteria, but you didn't have the cost included. And if I remember correctly, you said the cost is one key component.
Yeah.
Can you explain how the other criteria are related to cost and where you are compared
to?
Or where you hope to be?
So the cost, the selling price of a platelet concentrate is set by the government, and it doesn't reflect the how do you call that, cost of goods or whatever.
The production cost.
The production cost, because when you have a blood donor, you need to buy a television set and some goodies, but it has nothing to do with the process itself. It's set by the government, so the government is paying all the costs. So for platelets, what we know is the proportion of the cost to make a platelet concentrate is the biggest majority is the cost of cell culture. Now, I showed you our design to cost slide, and if we calculate that we need 300 times, for example, for our first generation device, the price, which is €100, that is unacceptable. What we want is that the price of the device, the cost price of the device is very low compared to the sell price of the platelet bag. And we think that way we are very attractive to the operators who need this device to do their clinical development. Until phase 3, the procedure is still open. So the Japanese are the most advanced, but they still use our device, and actually we have a lot of interactions with them. So to say the final price, it will depend on so many factors, like when you have an inefficient platelet concentrate, you need to repeat the platelet transfusion. So it's not the price of one platelet concentrate that you should consider. The price of the treatment, maybe 10. It's like an open tap, you know. It gets in, it's rejected, it gets out. So in fact, we think we are going to produce efficient platelets that so their price will be appreciated by the service that we and the improvement.
We have time for one more quick question.
If I understood correctly, the input to your process were stem cells.
Exactly.
And so can you describe, are those the patient's own stem cells who also need the platelets, or are those stem cells from other patients?
Yeah, the model is the same model as platelet transfusion, which is not autologous, it's allogenic. Okay? So we make platelets for everybody. With a cell line, you can make platelet to everybody. But you can also make it autologous.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do the most, you can do the less. But our model is based on platelet transfusion, which is allogenic.
Okay. Thank you again.
Yeah.
Okay, shall we keep the same order, or?
Yeah.
Okay, then Ivan, are you good to go forth?
I am.
Is that okay, Hagai?
Is that
Yeah, okay.
Nicola?
Okay, Ivan.
Yes.
Yes. Begin. 1 second. Got it. Okay.
Okay. So this handsome-looking guy is obviously not me. But this is the genius of our company, the founder, Vishal Sisodia, an Indian person living in Denmark. And he has spent 4 years on developing an algorithm which can precisely measure psychological stress and distinguish between what we call healthy stress and then potentially harmful stress and toxic stress. We need to further develop, but already now it can be done. And the device can also detect atrial fibrillation, where we also need to further develop. I will tell more about that. But the product we already have measures on heart rate variability, and many of you will know that it's not the same as pulse, but that is the interval or irregularities in the intervals between the peaks of the heartbeats. And Vishal has found a pattern which gives an immediate indication that people are stressed to a certain level. And there are other methods of doing that, but they take a long time. For instance, cortisol analysis. This can be done immediately by using a sensor and your mobile phone. It is a big problem, and because of that, it is also a good business case. According to European statistics, there is a market size of 50 billion. And how do we come to that? Yes, according to the statistics, 27% of all workers are more stressed than they like to be. We all are stressed when we get up in the morning and so on, but that is not harmful stress. That is normal, that's necessary stress. But here we talk about stress which makes it difficult for people to work. And we focus on workplaces because they can pay, and on insurance companies because they pay for treatment of people who are too stressed. As Danes, we are close, of course, to Sweden and so on, but we only have sales in Denmark, and we have only started sending invoices this year, and only about 100,000 euros. But we expect a lot, and we are here today. But imagine that there are 27% stressed people. And we also know that these stressed people, they are more sick due to stress than other people are. So they will have more absenteeism, 4 to 5 days more than others. And if we set each day of absence to 200 euros, we come up with these numbers, the 50 billions. And they have been confirmed in many statistics. So if we take an easy example where we say a company with 100 workers, we would assume that that would cost the company 27,000 euros per year. And our solution would be 10,800. So they could save 60%. So this is our sales argument to the insurance companies and to the companies. And they say to us, but it will take a long time to prove. So they are happy if we can only, in questionnaire surveys, show that people are more happy with being at the workplace than they used to be. If we look at competitors, then we believe that we are the only ones who do this, because not only we measure on heart rate variability, others also do that, but they are not as user-friendly as we are. But in the same app, we also have treatment facilities. And it is to be discussed whether stress response can be cured by meditation, breathing techniques, music therapy. But we all know when we drive our cars, then a speedometer can help us, tell us how fast we are driving. If we don't have this speedometer, we perhaps think that we are doing all right. The same with the weight, which tells us that, okay, we are gaining weight and we should be careful. So we trust that the light stress can be held down, can be reduced by mindfulness exercises and, of course, physical activity. And physical activity nudging is also what we want to put in our second generation. So, for instance, the Apple Watch is not measuring stress. They measure a lot, but not stress. So those who do it, they have, for instance, galvanic skin response, but that's quite complicated to measure. It's not an easy thing to do. We have compared, of course, to companies we know about in Scandinavia or in the world, and we have on different parameters some advantages. And I have talked about it, I think. I don't need to go more into that. What our strategy is, it is to be accepted by people like you first, by the healthcare professionals, because there are a lot of charlatans in the region who sell people meditation and say to them, use this and you will be less stressed. And we don't want to be compared with them. So we want to be accepted by the professionals. Then we want to have good stories from workplaces where we already have customers. And last, but we don't expect our most income from there, we will also go to the B2C market through social media. What we want to do now is large-scale validation, where we have a high-risk group, where we prove once more for a class 2 mark that we measure correctly. Then we want to give examples of the methods we use for collectively using what we do, and then enhance the product. And here is our sales forecast, which adds up to 0.1% of the big market. Our profit, here is our team, and here you can recognize me hopefully. We are endorsed by a person like Bo Netterstrøm, who in Denmark is the leading stress specialist, and he is also known internationally, and he will take us to Korea with him. Here are the first customers we are invoicing, And for instance, the teachers, they have said you can't send an invoice now because teachers, they move around, and as you possibly know, stress can only be measured when you are sitting down, and teachers are not sitting down so often. So we need to do continuous measuring, and when they walk around, then we suspend the measuring and measure again when they sit down, so they can get a graph 24/7. We would like to get 1.5 million euros, and what we want to do is to embed all our features in one sensor. We will do sleep monitoring, we will predict atrial fibrillation, continuous measurement, and make an even better user interface than we have now. And I have it with me, so if somebody is interested in the
Okay,
demonstration.
we're out of time, Ivan. It's time for questions. Thank you very
Yes.
much.
Please.
Thank you very much. I had a question regarding the data behind the algorithm and the software. So you didn't mention so much about which factors are you considering in order to calculate the stress, and then how do you think different kind of
Yeah.
demographic, you know?
Yes, what Michelle does is that, of course, the blood pressure plays a role, but it is the pattern in the irregularities of the intervals between the heartbeats. Because the researcher I showed you a moment ago, he uses parameters and interviews and cortisol analysis. And he has compared this pattern system, this algorithm, with his own results and said the correlation is extremely high. So we can do what he does much, much quicker. Vishal, if he were here, he would say it's a part of the business secret. But I hope I have explained enough that it is because of the strong correlation with established methods that we can believe in this.
Okay, do you know how much data is behind it? How many people can show he has
Oh,
is
it
looking
is.
at?
It's quite unlimited. It's unlimited.
Okay, thank you.
For instance, one of our customers, the big insurance company Bupa, they are discussing with us if they can use our technology on 600,000 people. They want to make an app for their business users, and in this app it should also be possible to measure stress, and we should handle that stress.
Thank you.
Please.
Go ahead.
What type of device do you need? What is the ecosystem you're playing in? What do you need, a proprietary interface to measure the R rates, or how do you get the data?
How we get the data?
Yeah.
Yeah. On my wrist here, I have a Mio Alpha 2 device, and it can measure heart rate variability. Not all sensors can. And it is not our product. So we are making our own sensor, and as I mentioned shortly, we want to create a sensor which embeds all functionalities in the very sensor, because it's more user-friendly. But now, we have to use Bluetooth. Of course, you always have to use Bluetooth, but we connect this sensor, which is not ours, to our app on the mobile phone. This is how we do it today. And in the sensor, everything will be so that you measure continuously, and then if you want to see your graph during day and night, you open your mobile phone and look at it. But today you have to say, I want to measure stress for 5 minutes or for an hour now, which is not as user-friendly. Please.
Thanks, Ivan. Very nice presentation. If I understood correctly, you are using now third-party devices,
Yes.
and you have the app running on the cell phone already.
Yes.
Have you started validating your promise and the hypothesis that you can really change people's behavior? And if so, how many patients are included?
It is,
and
of
what
course,
are-
crucial what you're asking about. And we have just started. So, for instance, Grundfos, a Danish company with 22,000 people all over the world, they do a pilot project, 3 months. And these 3 months will not give us evidence that we can do what I promised a moment ago, but my arguments has made them interested. So they say, if we can prove within these 3 months that people are more happy, and if they change habits and so on, then we believe in it. And if I may continue just a little bit, it is not enough to provide a device and hope that biofeedback will do everything. Because if you had this and you don't look like a very stressed person, so after 5 days you forget to do this. You forget to do the measurements. And where is the effect of biofeedback? That's why we in Grundfos have designed the pilot project like this, that we take 20 people who have a stressed work, and some of them are picked because we know that they are stressed. And they don't want to talk about it, but the management knows, HR knows. So these people, they form small groups of 4, and they meet every week, half an hour, and the company allows that. And here they talk about how are we doing, with our measurement. We don't forget, do we? And what does it show? And why are we stressed? Because the reason can come from the workplace, but it can also come from your childhood, and it can come from your marriage and from your economy. So what we like about our solution is that we just show that people are stressed, but we don't blame anyone. And then the discussion will reveal what is wrong, and also what can we do about it, because we want people to do something about the situation. And that's why we think it could be a strong tool for organizational development.
Okay, we have time for one very short last question.
Can you talk a little bit about the IP filings? You have any patent filings around the algorithm, the capability of a sensor you mentioned? Is there anything like that?
Yeah, could you, I didn't understand.
Do you have any patent filings in process?
Yeah. Yes, how we file it or what?
Patents.
Patent filings.
So what do you?
Any IP?
I'm not sure I understand.
Any patent filings?
Patent.
No, patent. Oh yes, of course yes. Yeah, we know that we have to protect this. Michel would say, if he was here, that it is always a question, if it is a good idea, because when you do a patent, you also reveal your technology. But now, when we take generation 2, where we want to do all these wonderful things, we know we cannot get investments if we don't have a patent. So you're totally right. Of course, we must do that, but we haven't got it, but we are preparing it now.
Do you think it will be on the software or on the hardware?
It will be on the
Sensor or
software. It will
algorithm?
be on the software. No, it will also be on the hardware, because we do the sensor.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, so
Can I borrow this part of the tape?
so now we have Hagai from Israel. Yes.
So, hi. Good afternoon. My name is Hagai and I'm with the Illuria Health, which is a software company focusing on ADHD. Actually, it has a simulation to what you heard before, but we focus specifically on ADHD, not on a wider scale. I don't know how many of you are familiar with ADHD, so maybe just 30 seconds brief on what exactly is ADHD. So ADHD, it's a chronic disorder that comes from a lack of material called dopamine in the head. It's like if you're seeing many television shows all together, but you cannot finish even seeing one show. And when we're talking about kids, which is the initial stage of the product, usually it comes out with inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. It's a very widespread disease. The prevalence is very high. The average prevalence in children is about 9%, and of course in adults it goes lower mainly because of diagnosis issues. It's continuous treatment. It's a chronic disorder, meaning it's not as if you're taking one pill and then this is it, you are cured. And moreover, it's not as if you're taking one specific pill or dosage and this is the dosage that actually carries you on for the rest of your life. You all the time have to calibrate the medication. Of course, there's also the behavioral treatment. But if we're talking about kids, usually you calibrate it on average once per 15 months. When talking about adults, it's longer, but then again, you have to calibrate because of the comorbidities. It's an expensive disorder. These are the rough numbers in the US and in Europe. Of course, in Europe it's valid, so I just gave the rough number of the institutional expenses. And when I'm talking about institutionals, 50% of them are governmental, and roughly speaking, 50% of them are private insurers. And of course, there's also the out-of-pocket expense for, again, we're talking about kids, for parents who don't want to wait for next year to have a turn in Mount Sinai, so they go into for the diagnosis and ongoing treatment by themselves. And one, last but not least, regarding the treatment process, you have the initial diagnosis process, and when we come in, it's actually the ongoing treatment, because once the kid has been diagnosed, and the physician said, okay, you have ADHD, and this is the medication that works, afterwards, I know that it sounds like I'm a bit exaggerating, but the overall treatment, let's say the ongoing analysis is done by the teacher, meaning you have designated schools and putting them aside, but if you're talking about the general community, usually the teacher is the one which is raising the flag and saying, okay, now something is wrong, the kid is annoying me, or the environment for the last couple of months, please go to the physician and recalibrate. So this is actually the market failure that we're trying to tackle, again, using a software solution that will provide continuous, passive and objective measurements regarding does the medical treatment works or not. Afterwards, we can talk about behavioral treatment, but the initial baby step is the medical treatment, and this is where we actually exist. We are a software solution. We get, maybe from you guys in the future, but we get biomarkers data. Again, not only outward variability, we're actually trying to get any type of biomarkers we can get, because again, it's a disorder in the nervous system. So many markers are relevant for ADHD diagnosis and ongoing analysis. So we get biomarkers data, basically speaking, from any wearable. We're wearable agnostic. We will never manufacture, I think, we will never manufacture hardware. Right now we're working on 2 platforms. This is the first one, and in the clinics we're using one which is a bit more reliable clinical-wise. And then, of course, we're doing the analysis, and once we have done the analysis, we can create, actually it's a baseline. We can create a baseline per patient, and once we have the baseline, we can actually provide tons of analytical issues regarding many medical questions that comes up when you are handling ADHD to many stakeholders, meaning the patient himself, the parents, the physician, the insurer, or whoever. And then again, the most basic question that you can find all over the place with all the physicians is whether the medication works or not, attention-wise, because you have attention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. Let's say on 9 class during Bible class. I'm from Israel, so it will be Bible class. Then again, you have many questions, but I will just show you one example regarding the output. This is by the way, a real-life case of a kid that we actually measured. And we created the baseline, it's a personal baseline for him when he has no medication and when the medication actually works. And then we can provide analysis. This is actually the back end, or let's say the mathematical analysis of how we calibrate it. I'm not going to go into the mathematics now, I can elaborate on it if you want, but actually you can see the measurements of the kid with no medication at all. And then we created the baseline. This is the effective medical treatments, Concerta, Ritalin, LA20, if you want to be precise, and then we can create the baseline. And by the way, we put the Concerta here because it's a real-life case of, as I told you, a kid which actually started the first grade. He started it with Concerta. The medication didn't work because the kid wasn't, the teacher didn't know it because the kid wasn't hyperactive, but the medication didn't work and the kid couldn't treat. And actually the teacher moved into, let's say, started moving into a special class because she said, okay, the medication works because it's not hyperactive, but he cannot treat. So maybe he needs some sort of special guidance. The second, the parent switched to Ritalin, of course, in the heartbeat, Harry Potter's, it's on top of the class, let's say, easily. And when we measured it, again, in parallel to the clinical diagnosis, we can actually get the results that you actually see. Again, if you want afterwards, I can provide you with some more examples, but I don't know how much time we have. Let's just touch base. Who will pay for 2 minutes?
2 minutes.
Who will pay for such a solution? I will just rush through it. The two latter players, of course, are more strategic partners, so we'll skip them. You have the B2B model, I mean, the insurers, the private clinics, and then you have the B2C. Personally, I'm coming from the B2C area. I think that this is the deeper pockets. Of course, you have the regulatory issue that you have to pass, the reimbursement, but we can start off with the private clinics. If you recall the numbers, this is where the biggest money at. You always have in the background the B2C, because the willingness to pay of the parents is quite high. Once you have an ADHD kid, the average number is $15 per month for an ecosystem that will allow him to better manage the disorder. We're thinking of it. I find it hard to talk about B2C, but maybe I'm wrong. And in the last minute, regarding where we are now, in the past 2.5 years, we've done the validation. I'm talking about business validation, clinical validation. We created 2 MVPs, protected the IP, and established the team. And right now, I mean, physically speaking, right now, because we just got the Helsinki finally, we're starting a scale-up with a Clalit. I don't know if any of you knows it. It's the world's second largest HMO, combination of insurer and service provider. And the scale-up is, let's say, validation in 2 aspects. First of all, the medical aspects. It's the scale-up of the private measurements that we've done before, and a business scale-up. And for this is why we're now raising funds for this initial stage. It's funded by the Israeli Innovation Authority, but we also want to start developing, let's say, in alpha in parallel. And of course, afterwards, there's the 2 years development process, regulation, and so on and so forth. Thank you. How much time do you have? Yes.
Thank you very much.
What is the prevalence of wearables with adolescents and children?
Of wearables, okay. I don't remember in adults. In children, it's close to, I don't want to say close to 0, but it's very low currently. Again, we're talking, it's not a wellness product. It's once you have ADHD, it's not as if you have a cute kid which is hanging and playing around. It's some sort of a disorder that you have to manage. So if it would be a wellness product, I think it would be very interesting to see how many people can actually download it and monetize and everything. Because we're talking about the disorder, again, I didn't talk about the business model, but I think we have to work on top of, let's say, predefined platforms, such as this one, for example, or Apple Watch, everyone's talking about Apple Watch, and then to actually deliver the product together with the software solution. I mean, I don't think it is as if, let's say for now, a kid will have Apple Watch and say, okay, let's download it and play with it. So I think the approach should be somewhat different. In adults, I think it's way more relevant, but we're not going to touch base with adults now because the clinical issue is much more severe in adults. You have the comorbidity, so it's way more complicated. We're now going to focus on kids.
When you benchmark with other solutions, like there are digital therapeutics targeting similar spaces like Akili or whatever, how do you position yourself?
I think I have a key here, if I recall.
You want to go back?
No.
Are you
Yeah. Okay, so this is the ecosystem. Of course, I missed tons of solutions because I didn't have any space, but specifically Akili, everyone knows them because they are pretty successful right now. Akili is the only one which is not an alternative solution because Akili actually replaces the drug.
Yes.
It's an alternative solution. You have also the biofeedback, which also replaces drugs. Again, the ecosystem is very large, so you have the pure diagnostic solutions inside the clinic. This one, again, all the EEG-based solutions. You have some solution coming forward in the, let's say, real life, in the ongoing. I just mentioned 2 of them. Axon is actually a part of Neurotech. They just took the CPD, the computer test, and shifted them into the nurse room, so that when next time a teacher says, okay, something is wrong, then immediately they will send the kid to the nurse room. But Akili, again, they replace the drug. So it's similar more, I would say, to neurofeedback. And actually, I'm partially working with some sort of a neurofeedback clinic, which are similar or more relevant to Akili. And we're actually assisting them because they need also to measure the patient along the treatment, when it starts, in the middle, and in the end. So it's more, it's not exactly a competition, but it's in the ecosystem.
So you complement each other because Akili needs a solution like yours to actually show that you can benchmark against
It's
existing
modest, I will not say that they need me, but yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. It is my understanding that the biomarker data is mainly coming from research biomarker data?
Yeah, it's not research. I mean, there have been in the past tons of research, let's say in the past 5 years, when the sensors became maybe not commercial then, now they're also commercial, but approachable. So in the last 5-7 years, there have been tons of research regarding biomarkers and ADHD. Examining each marker at a time and asking, for example, whether gyro movement, the angular movement, is relevant in diagnosing ADHD or the medical treatment. So I don't want to bore you with all the analysis, but this is actually a calibration of the markers from the kit that you've seen before. So these are the markers that we're measuring. All of them were actually researched before in Europe and in the States, aside from this one, the skin temperature, which is actually quite important, but for some reason it wasn't researched.
So there is some kind of database in which data is growing steadily, and that's it. So my last question is, what is your business model for the future with regard to, so say that for the healthcare or the consumer or the insurance companies, because there are many different projects, many different products, how do you intend to convince them that to use just yours with the biomarker versus all other based on video, imaging, brain analysis? Do you consider any partnership with a big player, or what is your business model for?
Yes and yes, and yes more. All the G solutions are more relevant to the clinic itself. They provide a better gold standard than the questionnaires and the CPTs, so they are not the direct competition. There are solutions, let's take Cognoa, for example. Cognoa, you might say it's a direct competition because they are also trying to solve the day-to-day problem. They're doing something different. As you said, they are taking video of the kid and then they're doing some sort of analysis. But they have covered the entire ecosystem. They have a physician sitting on the other end and actually delivering the analysis on real time. So it's an alternative solution. Or I would say we are an alternative solution for them. Again, the market is huge and you have many aspects of who will use what. But regarding the business model, again, the big money is in the insurer. They are the ones who are spending most money. Again, these kids are very, very expensive. You've seen the number before, roughly speaking, $15,000 per year in the States from a wide variety of expenses. I mean, it's almost sporadic per kid. So, and because of the trial and error. So I assume that they will have the largest interest at the end of the day, but then again, you need the reimbursement. We have existing codes, but there is a process, not as if it will be tomorrow morning. I think the, let's say, lowest hanging fruit, if I will put the B2C aside and not be tempted, are the private clinics, because they can actually adopt it tomorrow morning. It will also differentiate them, or designated schools.
Thank you.
Okay, we have time for one more quick question. Is there any more questions?
Not sure if it's a quick one, but it's a digital biomarker, right? So you're a screening tool, or are you trying to replace current gold standard, or
No.
it's a screening tool on top?
It's a good question, and it's not going to be short, so I'll give a short and not
I was afraid of that.
unsatisfying answer. I mean, I can measure you now, let's assume you have ADHD, and what will it say? I have no idea what will it say that the heart rate variability is X. What we're doing in the initial, let's say, baby step with the Clarity, as I mentioned, that we're taking 40 kids who are undergoing it's called TOVA test, some sort of a diagnosis test. We didn't invent it, it's FDA approved and everything. And we're actually finding the association, as you've seen before, but only on a larger number of kids, We found that the association between the crunching of the biomarkers, all of them together, not only one, with the clinical diagnosis. Of course, there's the deep learning. I mean, it's a digital health, and it's not digital path, so everyone is talking about deep learning and AI, but there is an issue here of clustering of kids, clustering of ADHD patients. Again, I will not go into it, but this is as interesting as what I've said here up to now. There's no clustering for the ADHD patients up to now. And once we will have sufficient data, which is several thousands, then we can talk about clustering. I hope it answered your question because I try to be brief. So.
You can follow up afterwards. Thank you, Guy.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, the next company is Revax. John will be presenting.
Okay, change of topic here. Let's see if this works. Revax, we're looking at vaccination against infection, particularly respiratory infection. Okay, outline what we're going to be looking at, technology, the development plan, market, competition, investments, partners and teams. So that's where we're going with a brief summary at the end. Only got 8 minutes, I'll try and be in time. Okay, aerosol delivery of vaccines to the lungs. Lots of advantages. It's more amenable to high-risk populations, to children. That's really important because children tend to be the super spreaders. It's the elderly who are most vulnerable to serious problems in terms of respiratory infection, but delivery as an aerosol is much more acceptable. And I was talking to a colleague this afternoon. In Japan, people prefer a drug rather than a vaccine. Of course, once you start using antivirals, the virus mutates and they become resistant, so drugs are not very good. But delivery by an aerosol is much more acceptable than an injection, so maybe Japan is a big market. Delivery to mucosal surfaces, particularly the lungs, you get cross-reactivity. So each year, the flu vaccine has to be updated with the latest strain of flu. If you've got cross-reactivity between last year's and this year's, you've got some protection for this year's flu. Lots of other advantages there. It's also more effective, and recent publication in Nature, TB, vaccination against TB, was more effective delivering to the lungs than by injection. So it's not just flu. It's more boostable, the number of technical reasons for that, so you get a good T-cell response and that doesn't interfere with boosting, whereas antibodies can interfere with boosting and give you the wrong sort of immune response, turning it towards allergy rather than protection. So it's more boostable. Low doses, very low doses. We are looking at 5 orders of magnitude less than the injection vaccine, so it's very effective. So it reduces costs. If we need to produce a new vaccine for the latest strain of flu coming out, the time from the WHO isolate to actually making the vaccine is going to be much shorter, so you can get out there and treat people more quickly. And issues to do with storage and transport, logistics are going to be easier if you don't need so much of the vaccine. So those are some of the big advantages. Has it been validated? Or preclinical for influenza, pigs, ferrets and mice. Our own work, but folks at Oxford University, elsewhere. For TB, that's Netherlands, as well as in the UK, Oxford and Portendale. And the low dose, again, that's been demonstrated in ferrets and in mice, and that's where we've got a commanding IP position. Clinical validation of the device, so from the regulatory perspective, this is vaccine and aerosolizer, so it's a device vaccine combination. And the WHO sponsored a trial in measles for live attenuated measles vaccine, and they chose a particular aerosolizer made by Aerogen. Okay, so what are the next steps? Well, it's like about 6 weeks ago we decided, yes, we'll start a new company, do this, because it came out of a device company. And so we spoke to Aerogen in Ireland. They're really keen to go ahead to partner in this. And we have some quotes for an infection challenge in clinically done with SGS. And that will demonstrate proof of concept in people for influenza. And at the same time, we're looking to do some further preclinical work just to confirm aspects of the immunology for flu, but RSV, there are models for RSV and TB that we do in conjunction with Public Health England at Porton Down. So that's what we're looking over the next 2 years. And after that, the larger clinical study, which could lead to marketing authorization. In conjunction, we're looking at field study, because these infection challenge, you're not dealing with vast numbers of volunteers. So you need to know it's safe in different population, so a field study for safety, and then further preclinical development for RSV, TB, and of course other opportunities, disease X, whatever's coming next, MERS, SARS, and there are potentials for cancer. And the target for investors is sale, flotation, partnering, whatever's next, different opportunities. I was speaking to someone earlier today, and actually they're moving from the VC model to actually what technologies will synergize with their in-house stuff. So that's the exit. Okay, market is huge. Vaccine market is about 36 billion per annum. For flu itself, it's about 3.3 billion. About 35% of that is in the US. But there's a massive need in terms of respiratory disease. And the WHO Global Impact Report itemises that yes, there are these huge markets now, but that's only scratching the surface, only the tip of the iceberg really. COPD, number 3 killer worldwide. The primary cause of disease exacerbation and hospitalisation is infection by viruses, RSV, rhinovirus and flu. The first three. Annual spend on that is 38 billion, huge. Key thing about vaccines is quality of life here. So we're looking at maintaining people's quality of life, protection from infection, particularly with COPD. Once you get an infection, you become ill, but you never recover properly, and it ratchets down. So quality of life is really important. Other opportunities I've mentioned briefly, TB, pandemic flu. It's not a matter of if but when we get another pandemic like 1918, 50 million people died, next time it could be 500 million. There will be no vaccine. So this is the potential of being a universal vaccine for flu. And MERS, SARS, disease X, cancer. Veterinary market, 7.2 billion. So there are other opportunities in there. Competition, there are other vaccines out there. Vaccitech in Oxford, MVA, vector vaccine, exciting stuff, but actually very poor for producing T-cell responses. There are lots out there that are great, but there's a but about them. FluMist is in some ways closest to us. It's out there. It's delivered to the nasal passages, so there are lots of pluses. It's a live attenuated influenza vaccine. So being live, you get some immunosuppression, which can exacerbate bacterial infections, so the risk seems to be variable from year to year. You can't boost it. So there are downsides to that, and there's a WHO report which lists a whole load of potential universal vaccines, and none of those are to the lungs. We're yet to see any of them particularly shining. We have lung delivery, so we're unique. Lower dose, cross protection, longer lasting and boostable. Milestones, as we said before, 2 stages, 15 million over that 2 years for the phase 1-2 clinical trials. Stage 2, over further 3 years, 35 million. These are our key partners: Aerogen, who produce the aerosolizer that WHO selected, SGS clinical partners, preclinical stuff at Public Health England, important, University of Oxford, important independent scientific advice. The team is being put together. We're looking for a big investor, a VC, who will bring in their own CEO. So they've got confidence in their investment, and someone who can drive it through. People, Ronan McLaughlin from Aerogen, expert in aerosolizers, so the technical side. People like Nigel Silman from Public Health England, who are up there in understanding flu. When there's Ebola outbreak, he's off there, to see what see top people. Summary: time is now. Validation, actually publications this year. I can give references. This is what we're looking for. Next phase 1-2, phase 2-3 clinical trials. And we're bringing about a revolution. So, Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions?
Yes.
One question around the antigen. What type of antigen do you use? Is there a different requirement compared to existing split vaccines or live vaccines? Or?
Really good question. What we've used is whole virus, so it doesn't need purifying, and there are some advantages of that, because if it doesn't matter what antigens you've got there, they're all there. We think in terms of the immunology, that may be important because the low dose experiments with such low doses, you can imagine it's just a single particle that's getting onto a single dendritic cell. So clearly that's enough to give the danger signal to the dendritic cell, but enough antigen to present to T cells, to stimulate the T cells. So that's what we're seeing. So yeah, which saves a lot of the manufacturing as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I also, do you see any challenges or risk for the development? Why are some big pharma, for instance, avoiding vaccine projects? So what's the challenge, if you can mention any, that
The big
you see?
thing is, it's cutting edge, it's novel, it's innovative, and that is always difficult to get support for. Well, it depends who you're looking at, but the big pharma, they've got their research, they're invested in what they're doing, so something that's sort of out of the box, delivery to the lungs, you've got to convince them, so that's a big issue.
But do you see any challenges in translating the animal models data to clinical?
There are always challenges with clinical trials, yes. You see, there are a limited number of people who can do these infection challenge trials. We want to go with a partner who are up there in terms of leading the field and growing, and they're keen to grow. So I think they're keen to work with us. That's a positive thing. There are others, there's HVivo, there's folks at NIH who could do that. So it is limited, and of course, until you do the trial, you don't know. There is, to my mind, a risk that we want to do the infection challenge study with the homologous virus, the same virus, and a heterologous virus, so a related but different virus. And the animal work says you'll get cross-protection, but until you do it in people, you don't know.
Yeah.
And until you do it with that particular virus, you don't know.
Okay.
But there are
Same
things like
thing.
that. Yeah.
Okay.
So you've got a platform and you decided on influenza.
Yeah.
A large market, you've got some really interesting animal data around that space. Are there other applications or disease areas that change that clinical development timeline and the resources required to get there that you've thought about? You mentioned TB. Are there other ones that you've sort of looked at? And how did you sort of arrive at that strategy to focus on influenza versus what might be less complex or more known vaccine disease interactions that might be available for building the first application?
Well, the flu is where we've got the animal data, our own animal data. There are these infection challenge models that are available for clinical trials out there. There are some being developed. RSV would be a possibility, but RSV VRC is more risky because there isn't a vaccine available, despite the fact that people are trying to develop that for decades. With flu, there is a sort of a route for getting approval for flu vaccines. Admittedly, it's typically looking at hemagglutination inhibition titers, which isn't the mechanism of action here. So that's an issue that needs to be addressed. And we'd like to look at the key T cell responses in these patients as well for that reason. A competition with somebody else might have something.
In terms of the target population, very often vaccines don't work in the elderly. Would this be better with the mucosal immunity compared to the humoral? Or?
Really good question. I think, but I don't really have the evidence for it, that it would be more effective in the elderly. You're immunising at the right place where you want immunity in the lungs. So I think it's
We don't know, but
we don't know. Yeah.
Thanks very much, John. Okay, our last finalist is Verde. So is there a, it's a PDF, I think there's the clicker. Does that work to change the slide? Okay, I think it works. I'll go back for you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Peter Dolving. I'm an entrepreneur. I have been working for 30 years globally, selling ideas and art, and basically working for humanist causes. 6 years back, I got this idea together with some friends. After so many years of traveling this planet, it changes your perspective of viewing things. What I'd been seeing for a long time was something called cannabinoids, various forms of medicinal cannabis. Now, this is a controversial subject. We know this. We all know this. This is one of those things. People even see our logo, they see the flower, go, woo. Now, the background to why I'm here today to talk to you is very simple. Novartis has already put $5 billion into Tilray, which is a North American company. The WHO, UN, UNGAS, the IMF, and the European Commission have all communally decided that they want to see this market open up in a functional way, where we have formats on the market that work out. Now, why do we want to do this? Why is this necessary? Why do we need this to happen? Because today we are looking at, in Europe, we're looking at more than 15 million euros that go straight out into what is illegitimate markets. It's a catastrophe financially and secure safety. What I've been doing for 6 years, almost 7 years now, is put about 1 million euros of my own money into research and networking. I've traveled the planet for all these years and connected to the best scientists and the best people on the field all over this world. What we're doing is everything but recreational cannabis. We have no interest in that. We approach this product as if it is a pharmaceutical raw product, and that is what it is. So, here we go. Let's see. If you have questions afterwards, we'll do everything back. What is the problem? Like I've said, we're facing a massive shortage of product. That's just a fact. We will be starting in Germany. And in Germany, the market is already open. We can go directly to shelf. What is our solution for truly as looking, as what do we want to do? Well, number one, we put together what is an integrated functional production format. It needs safety, it needs standards, and what we've done is created basically a mirror of what Astra and Example are doing in Gothenburg. We've approached the same people, and we're approaching the product as if a traditional pharmaceutical product. We're also, go back to this, what we're doing at the same time, we're developing various forms of technology for various spaces in the medical, healthcare, and pharmaceutical industry. We're doing, we have one format we're working with is for pharmacies to be able to buy in, singular individual cannabinoids for actual mixing within the pharmaceutical space. Why can we do this? Well, we can do this because the science is such, and that's why we can actually do it. We also provide for the larger industry, for companies like Novartis, etc. We will be producing large quantities of flour, oil, isolates in a number of formats. So, establishing traction. Now, this you will see this when you see the time plan ahead. Nothing in this is really rocket science at all. This is all building a house from the ground up. We know the pieces and where they go. We know what machines is necessary. We know what products we'll be putting out. We have the designing company. We're working with a Swedish company called Shift Design, which is one of Sweden's most award-winning industrial design companies. And together with a company called Magoo here in Austria, we're developing anything from aerosols and to individual singular cannabinoids in simple formats. What we've done with the aerosol is very nice. What Magoo are doing, they've created a format for us that will create a cheaper and a more efficient product than any of the actual market, existing products today. We have Epidiolex, we have Sativex, etc. These are medicines that have been created to fit with a legal structure before there was a market. Now we have products that are developed for a functional market. Marketing. So for me, this is the big one. This is what I'll be working with. The marketing process of all of this is going to be very important. The way we see the company is a format in itself. We see ourselves as the company who will make medicinal cannabinoids and medical cannabis understandable for the end client on the market. We won't be doing that by being that person who's all selling, pushing product. No. We will be educating. We will be working with philanthropy. We will be working in the educational and academic space in a very, very kind of mild-mannered address to the whole thing. So, economic timelines. From today, 5 years. Academic, well, basically from investment. Now, today, I'm only here looking for, 1 or 3. What is the initial basic anchor points in what we're doing now? We'll be over this period, we're looking at the next 18 months, which is basically knocking down key accounts, initiating marketing, etc. Once we have that out of the way, we set up the facilities in Berlin. After the one in Berlin is done, we go for Lisbon. After that one is done, we go for Sao Paulo. After that one is done, we go for Cartagena. After that one is done, we go for Mexico City. But this is the 5-year, all right? By end of 36 months from we set out to do the production facilities, you will have ROI. Team, I've worked with media marketing and PR for 30 years. Helena's an amazing start economist. She's been working with a company called EcoRide in Gothenburg, rapidly expansive. Louise Andreasen, Jogini, she's had a business in Bahia in Brazil for 10 years. And then we have Paul Gray, who's been doing large-scale production projects for companies like AstraZeneca, etc. Our financial targets, what we're looking for, why I'm here today, is this part right here. We're looking to pull in, over the next 18 months, 900,000 euros. It's not a lot of money. We put in 1 million. Not a million, yeah, we put in money. Oh my God, we put in 1 million already. But that's what we need to put the basics in place. And then we go to production. So, in the end, you're looking at a 21 million investment. What does one get back for that? The reality is rough when it comes to the math. If you look at the math, it is as rough as this. We are talking to the German authorities and the German, the government. What we're discussing with them is production level and size. The level we're talking about is in the region of what is 10 million grams per year per facility. Now, that will create and cause a turnaround of 800 million euros per facility. These are facts. Competition, you can ask me about it later. I'm very happy to be here. And questions, go.
Peter, awesome presentation. We can really feel that you're burning for this topic, so that's great. I think on the second slide you were talking about we are facing a shortage.
Yes, a massive shortage.
Yeah, well, sorry.
Yes.
I'm lost. Why are we
very
facing
simple.
a massive
Because on the one hand, you have an illegitimate market, which is overproducing. It's huge. Now, on the shelves in pharmacies, we're not seeing safe, certified product. Now, we can put that product there. The market that starts today in Germany is a starting ground of 40,000. That's expected to be, within 2 years, 500,000 people. Within 4 years, that'll be more than double. We're talking enormous amounts of product. Today, there's nothing there. We have Sativex and we have Epidiolex. Epidiolex is a medicine that doesn't work after 6 months for the end user. It has large problematics. And then you have Sativex. Sativex doesn't work for all patients for some reason. That's where we are. I hope that answers your basic question.
A much more basic question.
Yes.
You want to set up a raw materials producing company. So you want to grow, extract, quality control, and sell it in bulk.
Damn straight.
Okay, then I understood that. Because you also talked about consumer-focused...
This is a natural part of what will be the marketing plan. You cannot create a company like this today without taking care of the larger intellectual and academic discussion and the culture around it, because it is a product that has for 60 years been extremely stigmatized for various reasons. And what we're looking to do is to bring that into a functional middle class, working middle class kind of environment. Now, to do that, you need knowledge, you need language, you need culture.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Just to get it clear, when you set up a facility, say in Germany, do you cultivate the plant, or you import the plant, then you put it into...
No, none of that. Today, and I'll try to be brief. Today, what is going on is ridiculous. We're seeing European companies like Canna Medical, who is a subsidiary really to Canadian companies, who are flying in cannabis all the way in ridiculous investments they've done to be able to do this to the market. I mean, it's just throwing money away. It's just ridiculous. And we're talking about environment goals. We're talking about having sustainable, actual 2030 goals that are set out clearly defined. Now, we don't want to have that. We don't need more airplanes. Hell, they're doing their thing anyway. And if we can have production spread out in a good way, that's a good thing.
Okay, so you produce, purify it, extract the active ingredient, and then you make that.
And we make sure that, yes. So in various formats, we make sure that pharmacies have functional formats. Now, we know that all over what is the European market and what is the South American market and large parts of what is the Asian markets, there's basically the pharmacies, they will mix their own medicines to a large degree. Now, the technology that we're developing, they're for them. On the other hand, we have the industry, the larger pharmaceutical industry. They have a number of various things that they're developing instead, but with different medicines, because what we're seeing with the cannabinoids is a large diagnostic spectrum of what we can do with this.
Okay, last question. What is the cost of setting up each manufacturing facility?
Around 20 million. I believe that will be, that can be brought down, but not a lot, because there are technology that has to be in place. They're large-scale facilities, but everything is, basically what we're looking to do is we will be putting together, on one hand, pieces from what we know already is functioning for large-scale botanical constructs in Holland, and then we'll be putting that together with large-scale pharmaceutical production, that an example around AstraZeneca, Novartis, where we know through Paul, who's our CTO, and we'll be bringing these two pieces together. And then what me and my executive team are doing, we're bringing in partners into this, where we have a science partner who will be doing the biology and the chemistry for that part. We will have grow teams for that part. It's a corporate structure. You should, in our head, we're the Bayer of cannabis. In a very ridiculous, kind of funny, ambitious thing. But that's the goal. That's what we're out to do. We're trying to create a format for the cannabis to function in a larger global scale within the goals of what the World Health Organization and the UN and the IMF and Interpol are trying to get working. And that's the whole goal with the product, with the whole project, to answer an order that came in 2009. And we picked up on it and thought, well, this sounds really interesting. Let's take a look and see what we can do. Well, we found that there are ways to solve the problem, and we've solved it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Peter. Thank you. So that concludes the pitch challenge. Thanks again to the panelists and also for the finalists, your excellent presentations. We really appreciate it. And as I mentioned earlier, we'll connect you by email with the panels so that you can follow up. So have a great day, everyone.
Thank you very much.
On the final stretch.